Welcome back to the kitchen. I'm fixing to throw a loaf of bread in the bread machine before I run to town to do errands. So I thought I've been planning on showing you how I was milling my own grains now. I've been doing this for about a month and I've gotten some pretty good results finally, but I'm trying a new recipe today, so it may need some tweaking. But this is from the Fresh Milled Mama, and you can visit that website at freshmilledmama.com. It's called the Zojirushi bread machine. I do not have a Zojirushi yet, but I'm working on it. So what we're going to do is, first of all, let me get, I have we need 585 grams of flour. So this is 3¼ of berries. It's a little bit more than that, so we'll see how it grinds out. And what we're going to do is take this off. Now I got to turn the mill on before I put the berries in, so I'm not going to be talking. Loud, isn't it? And that's all there was to that. Isn't that cool? So now the next thing is I'm going to weigh this flour. Now after I do a recipe a few times, I don't weigh it as much. I don't weigh it at all. But since this is my first time, I'm going to weigh this because the recipe calls for 585 grams of flour. So let's make sure we have that. Just going to scoop it in there. And that's at 307. Okay, we're getting close. That's at 508. I might be a pretty good guesser on how many berries it takes. That's 562. 577. Look at me go. 587 right there. I only ground that much too much. Perfect. When you're dealing with fresh milled wheat, you need fresh milled wheat because it doesn't, once you mill it, the nutrients start to break down. So milling a bunch of it and saving it kind of defeats the purpose. Okay, so we have our flour ready. Now let's work on the liquids. All right, in my cup here, I have 1½ cups of milk. The recipe called for water, but I like to sub in milk. And it takes 2 tablespoons of butter. Now I'm going to put this in the microwave for 1:15 to get the milk warmed up. You need a temperature of 110 degrees to activate your yeast. So this is going to get it warmed up. Next, we're going to add 1/4 cup of honey into the liquid mixture. And 1 egg. I'm going to stir that up. And that liquid is going to go in the bottom of the bread machine. Just like that. Then I'm going to take 2 teaspoons of salt. I have iodized sea salt. Okay, 2 teaspoons, give or take. And I always stir that up as well before I put it in the bread machine. Even though the bread machine's going to do some mixing, just like to give it a head start. This is a lot more flour than I usually use too. This makes a 2-pound loaf, and I usually make a 1½. So we're going to see. All right, got that mixed in. Now, here's the important part if you're new to fresh milled flour. I tried quite a few recipes without doing something they called autolyzing, and they were all flops. Then I read about this. Autolyzing means we're going to put the flour in here, and I'm going to turn the machine on for 5 minutes and let it do all its stirring up. Then I'm going to turn it off and let it sit for 1 hour, 45 minutes to 1 hour. Then you turn the machine on, let it go through its deal. And I have a setting on mine that says whole grain. That works a lot better than the basic as well. So I'm going to put the flour in here. We're going to turn it on. Then after 45 minutes, then you put the yeast in, okay? You don't put the yeast in until you've had a chance, till your flour has had a chance to autolyze. I can do this without much mess. Okay. So we're going to close the door. And it doesn't matter what cycle, because I'm just going to let it run for 5 minutes, and then I'm going to turn it off and let it sit for an hour, and then I'll come back and turn it on the whole grain. So after the first 5 minutes, that's what it looks like. And I like to, all that stuff that got on the edges, I like to go ahead and punch that down so it can be absorbing the water or the moisture, the milk, whatever, as well. So now we are in the autolyzing phase. And we're just going to let it sit and soak up that water for about an hour. We're going to come back and put 2 teaspoons of yeast in here, and then we'll turn the machine on, okay? An hour later, and it doesn't look much different. But we're going to now put 2 teaspoons of yeast right on top and turn it back on. I use this SAF instant yeast. I don't know if it's SAF or SAF, but anyway, that's it. And I just noticed that this particular bread machine is on sale on Amazon. Just look for the Hamilton Beach bread maker. It's the new digital version. So, just to recap, because I get to run in my mouth and I forget stuff. This is the recipe that I'm using, and it's from the freshmilledmama.com. I did do milk instead of water. I did the honey, the egg, the hard white flour, and this is usually I use just a little bit of red, but this time I'm doing it just like the recipe, so this is all white. It also calls for 35 grams of Vital wheat gluten, but it says optional. Okay, I don't have any of that, so we're cutting it out. Then we put 2 teaspoons of salt, and I melted 2 tablespoons of butter in with my milk. Now we've got the yeast in there, so we're going to close the lid. I have picked setting number 11, which is whole grain, so I'm fixing to turn it on. I'm going to run to town, and when I get back, we'll see how the bread looks. Okay, the timer went off, and I've let it sit in the bread machine for about 15 minutes to kind of cool off a little bit and to get soft. So now we're going to take it out. Okay, let's have a look. Looks good to me. It smells amazing. Okay. This is another one of my favorite things. This is a Japanese bread knife, and it's well worth it. I'll put a link to all this stuff in the description. And there you go. Can you see? It really, I'm going to have to go get butter for this. But we'll take just a taste, because I know everybody says, oh, you didn't taste it. So, that's very good. This is a very good recipe. And other tips, let it cool completely before you slice it, because otherwise it gets dry really fast. So, and this is another one of my favorite things. This is the bread bag, and it has, well, you can't really tell it, but it has a beeswax liner, so it keeps it nice and soft. So, I'm going to let it cool a little bit, put it in the bag, and then when it's completely cooled, I'll slice it, if it lasts that long.